Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. It's Peter, Ian, our CEO, and myself, and we're going to talk about something today that is not often addressed, but it is actually an epidemic in our profession. When you look at dentistry, we lead in all the wrong categories: divorce, suicide, depression, drug abuse. People know that about Hollywood, but I've looked on AI and I said, who's worse, dentists or actors? And unfortunately, we're worse. So everybody knows, Hollywood's a place for lack of fulfillment, but holy smokes, dentistry, we've got it all. We're not doing so great. So one of the things that I feel strongly about, and thank you, Ian, for bringing this up today, is that what brings us closest is our common frailties. So the goal of this podcast would be that people can understand that it is lonely at the top and it's difficult. And Peter and I had a relationship that was built on a commonality of strife and struggling. And that's how the genesis of Bulletproof was. It is Peter reaching out to me in August of 2016 saying like, hey, he didn't say it outright. He didn't say like, hey, I'm in a bad place, but it was like, hey, I admire what you're doing. We should compare notes. And through comparing notes, we realized that, wow, we're both dealing with quite a bit of stuff. And that's how the podcast was born. So we're going to touch back on the roots and how it all was in, the inception of this podcast, the books that we've written, and kind of reflect on where we've come from. And hopefully the benefit of this would be that whoever's out there thinking that it's hard for them, they'd understand that we all struggle and you don't want to compare your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 10. So Ian, what were your thoughts for what we want to accomplish today?
I really want the two of you to get into your story because that's something we get questions about all the time from our listeners, and from how did Bulletproof start? What is its inception? And what did you struggle with? Pete, what did you struggle with, Craig? Because there's this idea that they look, as you said now, they look at their chapter 1 and they go, but look at Craig and Peter and see where they are. And they're like, why am I not there already? And they feel even more hopeless because of their situation. But I want listeners to understand that regardless of the chapter that you're in right now, there's community within dentistry and understanding that this is difficult. You both have mentioned on this podcast before, my father is a dentist. He went through these things in the early years where I wish he had a Bulletproof, and I saw him struggling with dealing with these things himself because of not having that community around him. And talking about mental health is not really something that he ever did with me, even though I was his son. Now we do, and it's fantastic, but when he needed it most, we didn't. So if you can take us through your story so that we can actually just show our listeners that you're not alone, that would be phenomenal.
So I'll jump in. Pete, I know your background pretty well, and please feel free to jump in if I'm not getting this accurate, but it was August. It was actually my birthday, August 26th, 2016. I remember because it was my birthday. But Pete's like, at the time I was following Pete on his Instagram and watching Atlanta Dental Spa and seeing what they're doing. And I was admiring his success. And he was somebody that I really looked up to without even knowing him, as somebody who's a dental entrepreneur that's doing it right. And I suppose Peter felt the same way because he reached out and said, hey, I really like what you're doing over there in Florida. And if you're ever in Atlanta, let's link up. And what happened was, it was kind of funny in retrospect because I know Peter now so well. He's not this raging extrovert like I am, but at the time, like, hey, Pete, why don't you just come down and hang out at my house? And Pete's like, okay. But knowing in hindsight how crazy and out of character that was, like random, you're going to come randomly hang out with the dentist. So Pete, I welcomed Pete to my driveway. I just remembered he had a backpack and I put him in my kid's playroom. There were toys everywhere. 2016, I slept in my extra bedroom and we went out for a couple beers. We started just talking, and really Peter didn't at that point let me know that he was having a hard time, but we were just kind of open books with each other, like comparing notes and commiserating. I think I was in a good state at that particular moment. I was happily achieving. I think Peter was probably at a lower point in his career, like where it was like, screw this, depression, burnout. Like, do I really want to do this? He's in the chair doing dentistry, trying to build the business at the same time. Funny thing is over time and comparing notes, Peter became a lot more like me and I became a lot more like Peter. I learned his business sides. He learned mine. And I think it's fair to say, Peter, and I hope you'd agree with this, the tables kind of turned quickly. You became more fulfilled. You got out of the chair. You had more bandwidth. You were freed up a lot. And then you were constantly saying to me like, hey, how's it feel to do dentistry? Like, and be strapped to the chair. And I'm like, it's okay. But then seeing, your flexibility and your ability to why don't we work on a book, or why don't we do a podcast? And I remember how frustrated you were that I had no entrepreneurial time. So Peter had started leaning on me like, hey, free yourself up. And Peter actually said to me, like, just don't book anything on a Tuesday and like hang out at the house or whatever. Like, just totally free up your time, get a massage. And I remember like being free on the Tuesday, and my wife immediately tasked me with everything. So it's like, hey, babe, I'm not going to work today. She's like, good. You're going to the dry cleaner. You're going to go Publix. You're going to pick up the kids. I'm like, oh shit, I'd rather be doing fillings than doing this. So Peter was prescriptive. He tried to help me do what he thought was right. But it was interesting because I wound up going through my own journey, and I got a major lawsuit with an employee, and then the tables really turned. So Peter wound up being was the unfulfilled one. And I knew it in hindsight, and I'll let him speak to it. It was one of his darkest times. He just didn't really let on to it, as most men do. We kind of suffer in silence a bit. Or what do they say? Men leave lives of quiet desperation that we don't communicate. And then the tables flipped. But Pete, what's your take on that narrative?
I think you kind of nailed it, honestly. Like, look, as anyone who's listened to the pod long, and Ian, maybe you haven't, your tenure with me isn't that long, but like, I am not touchy feely. It's not my DNA. So it's hard for me to kind of talk about this stuff. I think about just, I'll grind through it. But Craig's right. Like, honestly, I reached out to him, and Craig, it probably was excitement / desperation, but like, honestly, I had no dental friends. At least I had no dental friends that wanted me to do well at the time, right? There were other communities where it was a quasi, like email list and all this, but it was still all this posturing about, look at this case I just did, look at my life, look at this. It was all this flexing in every dental community I've ever been involved with. Even, I could name them, but I don't want to throw shade to them, but like Craig, the ones I've been involved with, and it was always just bullshit. It was bullshit community, quite honestly. There was no vulnerability. And so I didn't have that. So Craig, you're right. I had to suffer in silence. I was the apex predator of my ecosystem. I couldn't show weakness to my family. I couldn't show weakness to my team. But I was kind of struggling with some things. I'd had a long partnership breakup on. I had some health issues with my children growing up. My son was very premature. And so there were things going on that was just dark, and I was just burnt out with dentistry. I was the one doing it all. And Craig, you're right. I reached out in a point of desperation. But honestly, even that was probably hard. So I masked it with, hey, I'll just go hang out with this new friend, because men aren't supposed to talk about this, right? That's the way I thought about it. Men aren't supposed to talk about this. You're not supposed to talk about your problems. Just eat your glass and move on. And I think this is why it's such an epidemic in dentistry. Craig and I have spoken about this, is that we don't feel like there's a safe space to talk to others about it, right?
I think it's heightened too, Peter, in the circle that you were in and many of our listeners are in. So if you're the apex dentist, you're the high producing dentist, and you're in like the cosmetic world or the all-on-X world, you're just flexing about your prowess, and you're constantly putting out these cases. And we have a masterminder right now, one of your people that you were in that zone with, and he's just telling us like this whole circle of this cosmetic circle is all bullshit. Everyone's peacocking, but they're comparing notes on their preps and their cases, but they're not talking about
But their businesses are shambles, or their jobs are shambles. Like, they're not, there's a huge disconnect, right? And so that's why I wonder, Greg, you and I joke about these dentists who are active. And look, if you like it, it's great, but you're active on Instagram, peacocking all of your best cases. In order to do what? Aggregate more dental followers? I've never understood that, right? I was like, go get new patients, not get dental friends and dental admirers, so to speak.
Yeah, by the photos that these people are posting, they're not to attract patients because they're showing retracted, prepped teeth and gore.
But there's
and
never
bone grafts.
Today is Failure Friday, right?
Yeah.
It's full arch, and look at me, and look at my it's Ferrari Friday and full arch Friday, and all the things.
Yeah.
Do you think that those are not maybe the dentists that are struggling exactly with what we're talking about here? Because if I'm happy with myself and I'm happy with what I'm doing and I'm fulfilled in the dentistry that I'm doing, do I constantly need to seek other people's approval?
No.
Yeah. There are
think
studies,
that's
by the
rhetorical,
way,
right?
I think there are studies I've read, like people that post themselves working out or post their success or post more pictures of their spouse, it generally speaks to lower levels of personal happiness and satisfaction. So those are statistical waypoints to look at. So why are you posting? And Peter's point is really valid. Like, why are you posting the retracted? You're not a dental educator. You don't have courses to teach, but you're just peacocking to other dentists. And this whole social media thing that we've figured out is really dangerous for teenage men and women. It's extraordinarily dangerous for dentists as well, because they all feel like they're failures. And maybe it's by virtue of like my position on the podcast and Peter's position, but I get a lot of inbound calls. I got a guy recently, he was in my contacts. I saved him as John Doe, and I put in quotes, suicide, because Peter and I this is going back, I think, to Nashville. Peter and I had just gotten off stage. And like when we have a summit, a lot of people want to come up to us or thank us or whatever, take pictures or whatever you do. And we saw off in the corner of our eye, we saw this man that had tears in his eyes. He was red in his face, and we knew something was going on. So Peter and I walked over to him, right, when he had his turn. And he's like, look, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this podcast. And instantly, Peter and I knew exactly what he meant by saying those words. And he was crying. Peter had a little bit of water in his eyes, and he would swear his allergies, but I think it was emotion, but he would deny that he has emotion. But, making a joke, but it showed that there is a listener, there's a bunch of listeners, groups of listeners out there that are just listening to this and just hearing this, just saying, oh, wow, this is normal. This is part of it. Like even at Peter's level, he went through that. That in and of itself it offers you so much grace for your own position in life, just to know that this is normal. And that's my hope for everyone that goes through something, is just to know that Peter went through it. I went through it. We're still going to go through it. There's more difficult times. You just get a little bit more comfortable with it. And you also don't judge yourself so harshly, because it's two factors. It's one, going through the pain, which is everyone goes through it. But the second part is how much crap you load on yourself for going through the pain in the first place.
Totally. I used to have, this is a good kind of story, and this applies to everybody, and, because everyone's going to relate to this, but I had this one assistant who she would see me either coming in late or leaving something or being off. She's like, oh, golly, I want your life, right? It must be nice. This must be nice. And I would say, you may want my life now, but you wouldn't have wanted it on the way up here, right? And you just forget. I think going back to your point, Ian, about don't compare inning 1 to Craig and Pete's inning 8 and 9 kind of thing, because what you see is this, oh, here we are on a pod peacocking around and talking about here's how you do all these things. Yeah, we learned it through making a bunch of mistakes, getting our ass kicked, right? And sometimes our ass kicked continually. And Craig, you alluded to that. Me in 2015, I was done. I was done mentally. I was done physically. Dentistry, all the practice offers were on the table in 2000. Maybe that was 15. And I kept telling myself I'd wake up, and it was that thing where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I don't want to go today. And you couldn't go back to sleep because you were just dreading going back into work kind of thing. And so I'd sit out at the end of my bed, like procrastinating and being like, shit. I was like, all right, just make it to the end of the day. Just do one more day. Right. And then I'd wake up and do that same shit again. One more day. And then finally it got close enough to Thanksgiving. And I was like, I'll just dump this practice and be done with it by Christmas break, right? I'll get to like Thanksgiving and then Christmas break, right? That long holiday. And then slowly but surely, like one foot after the other, it got a little bit better. And I'd kind of dug out, right? But I saw it change, because I was like, I can't keep going the way things are going. If I don't change my inputs, then my outputs will remain exactly the same. And so this is when I got engaged in kind of reaching out beyond my sphere. I reached out to Craig, and I reached out and I learned more, and I got stimulated about things, and I started bringing more associates into the practice and things like that. And after a while, right, like what felt like doom and gloom, it passes. Just like the good times will pass, the bad times will pass eventually too. And you just have to sometimes remind yourself of that. And the beauty, I think, Ian, where you're going with all this, the beauty is when you can find that core group, whether it's dentist or just regular friends that will ride the highs and ride the lows with you, right? When you can authentically share like, hey, I'm in a bad place, bud. And you have a group that rally around you. That's a blessing. But I don't think many men have that. And I know women are better support groups, just organically you see that. But I think I'm speaking probably to the men dentist here. right? You got to get yourself surrounded by people who want the best for you, that you can vulnerably share with. Because I didn't do that for the bulk of my career.
And in many ways, Peter, that's kind of like what our mastermind has become, because it's a safe space. Like you said, like your local dental society, the dentist there wants you to do well, just not better than them. You always say that it's so true. The fact that we're a geographically disparate group breaks down a lot of the biases of you're going to take something from me. You're talking about making it through the day. And I just remember those things too. I had even smaller chunks. I wanted to make it to lunch and I'd leave at noon and come back at 1, but it was so incredibly difficult. I don't know if you told me I had to go through the journey. I'm so happy I went through it. I love my life today. But if you told me I have to go through it again, I don't know if I want to do it.
I couldn't do it. Honestly, I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
As much as I want to peacock and say like, I've got it, Craig, I do not have the stamina anymore. That's why the problems are given to the young, I think, because you can withstand a little bit more, right? Where we have wisdom now, we had strength and stamina when we were young.
So you could walk through the wall.
Peter, let's start with you, and then Craig, I want you to answer after that. You said this idea of just making it through the day and I can't do this. When you say that I can't do this, what is this? What was the day today that we can think of for our listeners of like, this was the core struggles?
Oh man, that just went all over me when you said that. Okay. So what was this? It was going in, freaking, I want to cuss right about, I'm going to try and keep it PG, faking it all effing day, right? I was sad inside. I was depressed. I was questioning everything kind of thing. And now I had to go in and razzle dazzle Miss Jones in a veneer prep situation, right? Why? Because if I didn't, I'd be even a worse predicament, right? So it was this vicious loop that I had to go in and reassure my team, everything's great. And I had to put on this happy face all day long. And for an extrovert like me, that is incredibly exhausting, right? I would leave with 0 battery life in my tank. I was at 0% when I would leave every day. And now I would have to go home and fake the same shit, right?
Mine was different. Mine was, I was a really poor quality leader and I love people. So unlike Peter is a little bit more of a private person, not a raging extrovert. I'm a raging extrovert, not an introvert. I'm an extrovert. So I love people, but yet I was making them all around me. They'd cry and they were breaking down. I was being an asshole because what I realized, I was saying all the right things. Like Pete was saying all the right things to his veneer prep. I was saying all the right things to my team, but inside I was saying like, these people don't give a shit. I'm the only one holding the bag. I'm the nucleus of everything. No one cares. And even though I wasn't saying that to them, my body language treated them that way and they were breaking down all around me. So my deal was, can I go in today and not have someone cry? Can I not make someone cry? Because I would sit in bed at midnight or 1 a.m. and think about the fact that like my assistant got something wrong. And I would just say like, hey, you got to try better or you try harder. Like you got to care more. And I would break people. Maybe it's because of my presence or my height, or I don't know what it was, but I had the ability to really break people. The way I can build people up, because I wear my heart on the sleeve, I can break people as well. And that was incredibly painful to cause pain to my team. And I didn't realize I was surrounded by some really great leaders and learned from them.
I'd say I did that too, but I had none of the superpowers of building people up. I was just, when you're in that state of flight or fight kind of mode, like you are not thinking. I was harsh and mean. And, and people were scared of me in our practice, but yet I didn't have the other side, which was the soft side, right? So everything was just coming down around me.
It makes it worse, Peter, for me, because at least and this is something I learned from you, like when I had like team members that were bullying me, you're like, screw them, like get them out of your life. You need to be strong. So it's worse when you care and you're hurting. So at least you're consistent, like you're just a consistent, like heart, I don't mean it in a bad way. Like you're harsh, you're not giving mixed messages. So I would be harsh, you'd be crying, and I'd almost be crying that I made you cry. So it's like psychosis. And I learned a lot from you. Like you remember we were in LA at the summit in 2018. I had a doctor that I didn't have the intestinal fortitude to let go because they were a super producer. They were producing like $2.8 million in the practice. And you're like, dude, the tail can't wag the dog. You've got to let this person go. And I didn't have the guts. And it was Father's Day, 2017, 18. And he like quit. And you were there, right there. And you're like, God did this for you. God did it. You didn't have the courage to do it. Well, God did it. This is a blessing. Just rejoice. Let's go have a steak dinner. And you talked me off the cliff. Remember that night? You sent the steak back.
Clear as day. I remember it all.
And it was just Peter constantly in my, like, hey, dude, you're struggling. You're looking to, like, come, let's go for a walk. Come over here. This is a good thing, dude. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. So he was there to literally talk me through those things. So Peter and I have such unique, complementing, different attitudes and ways we approach things. It's like a 1 + 1 = 100. We're so powerful together. Not because we are powerful individually, but the combination resonates with so many different people. And that's why the summit is such a transformational experience, because people come in and I don't really feel what Peter says, or I don't really feel what Craig says, but they get hit from all different sides and there's breakthroughs always happening. It's incredible how much value Peter's added to my life because of his different way of thinking.
Same. Echo that. And I think it's important. And I think this context, I think this is why we're also so appreciative, Greg. And none of this was false humility, by the way. Like the stories you just heard, Ian, if anything, I probably sugarcoated it because I don't want to get into this womp womp mode right now. But, you know, you look back, Craig, and you said, I couldn't do it again, but I also wouldn't trade it for the world, because it gives you such context and perspective. Vaynerchuk says, why am I drawing his name? Gary Vaynerchuk says, he's like, it's dirt in the clouds, right? So you got to get in the dirt in order to appreciate the clouds. And it's such a good context, remember? So I'm so grateful. And people always kind of ask me right now, Ian, like I was just on vacation with a bunch of buddies and like, why grind so much? I was like, I need to get back to work. I got to do all these things. Like, why are you still grinding so much, right? Why do you want? And I'm like, I like what I do right now. But honestly, guys, I have some scars that I can show you from those years that we just mentioned. And I want to get as far away from that as possible. So I'm never going back, right? It's a constant reminder. And I just don't want to go back to that era. And I think what I just said there, I think there's people that are shaking their head right now. Like, oh yeah, I get that, right? Getting away from that time period. But, you know, so if you're listening to this, I guess here's my point. If you're listening to this now and you're like, this doesn't really apply to me. Things are great. Get ready, because you probably got some shit coming, right? But if you're in this shit right now, and you're thinking, God, this really is resonating with me, get ready, because you're probably on your way out.
You're at the point where you're realizing shit needs to change.
Just stay in the damn game. Just stay in, right? Don't make permanent decisions. Don't do draconian moves when you're in crisis. Get out of the crisis, right? This is what I think we see in dentistry.
Get help, though. That's the most important thing.
Get help, get support, get therapy, get a friend even. Right? It doesn't have to be, just get someone you could say, hey, help me out of this one problem today.
My brain just goes to like Mastermind and Summit, by the way, because if we didn't have that, I know it sounds like a sales pitch, and it's not, because we've seen, 1,000 people go through this or more. And we've seen, like, I wish I would have learned this earlier. So when you're in that crisis mode, you and I did not know what we needed. If you would have given you a magic wand in 2016, you would have asked for something that would have not supported you.
But Craig, as a human, my default, when shit didn't go my way, probably in life, when I wasn't the best at sports, when something was not working, I just quit, right? When I wasn't the best, I just quit. And so I had to learn, like, this wasn't something I could just flippantly quit. So I had to learn that tenacity, right? Probably later on in my adult life, post dental school kind of thing.
Why is there this stigma of talking about mental health? I know as a society, we've come a very long way.
I'll tell you why. Craig's very open to talking about it. I'll tell you why, Ian, because it's a weakness. That is, the stigma is that it's a weakness, and I can't show my weakness.
But like nobody in dentistry to me is talking about, I mean, we're scouring these things.
There's some people talking about it.
To the level that it deserves, Peter, for what this industry is going through.
The success too. So I feel like there's people that quit and talk about it.
I got to tell you though, y'all. So some people just don't like talking about it. I personally don't like talking about it either. And honestly, the best antidote for mental health is fixing your shit. Getting your life back on track, building your business, creating autonomy, all these things. You don't have to have therapy. Like sometimes that can be the therapy to fix things. It's just grind stuff out, learn new tricks, get new skills, get new leadership, all these things, get better team members. And before you know it, now your life is in a better position. You're not in this precarious, stressful situation anymore. So yes, I hear that it could be therapy sometimes, and that could work for some people. People like me, it's better just to fix the etiology of it. What's causing it?
I mean, listen, I'm not here to knock therapy, and I don't know enough about it. But from an outsider looking in, it's an examination, a hyper focus of examination on what went wrong and how to deal. But if you spend the same amount of time and energy on how to make things right, that's wonderful too. So there's positive psychology. Model other people who are successful. That's a Tony Robbins thing. Tony was obsessed with not figuring out what went wrong, but what do successful people do and what are the patterns they do? So I had people like Randy and John who just seemed to be kicking ass at life. And I would go vent to them oh, I have a lawsuit. They're like, oh, good, congratulations. A lawsuit, great. I'm like, why? You say great. Because I have 15 going at the same time. And I'm like, you're still happy? You're still enjoying? He's like, yeah, because there's always going to be people that have sour grapes. And there's going to be people did you do anything wrong? No, this is frivolous. Get over it. So I think modeling successful people. And when you talked earlier about why is no one talking about this, what I think is extraordinarily valuable is the successful people that talk about the pain and failure. Because it's easy to discount the ones that said, I opened a practice, it sucked, I hated it. Now I'll teach you a course on how to be fulfilled. I want to model those who went through the eating of the glass and now eat the caviar. I want to model them. I want to follow those people. And there's a quote that someone said to me, and I love this: always get advice from people whose lives you are seeking. So Peter and I was talking about chops and ground game and making sure that you're learning from people who have done it. That's the other thing that compounds the dentist misery. There's a lot of people, tons now, from all these famous influencers and business advisors that are now showing up on my social media feed about, hey, are you a dentist? Are you struggling? Well, we'll take you through the steps. They're not dentists. They don't understand the nuances of it. What I really hope is that there's people out there like us that have done it, that are doing it, and that can teach you. Because my biggest fear is you hire a consultant that worked in a dental office for 6 months or 2 years and never really did it. Because that person's going to further you and compound your pain, because now your hope is going to start running out. I've tried everything. I hired this consultant. I went over here. I spent $50,000 with this guy, and you don't get anywhere. You start losing hope, and that's when things get a little bit more dark.
Do either of you find an associate as a good person to find mental fortitude in? I know there's this, I don't want to call it a stigma. I just mean sometimes you're happy with associates, sometimes you're not. And finding that right person is often difficult, but when you do, is that someone that you would find comfort in, or do you feel this is something you should do alone and protect that from your associate?
I would not share that with an associate, personally. Because for me, it was future partners. They were always people I wanted long term. And it's kind of going back to that, not showing your cards, because I wouldn't want someone to see the shit show behind the scenes, behind the curtain. Right. So no, that would not have been my confidant at any point along the way. No. And it was honestly, Ian, so going back to the friends thing, I was just thinking about this. A lot of the friends I hung out with in 2005, 6, 7, 8, even to 10 are completely different ones that I hang out with today. Right. But you have to sometimes elevate to a different place where you do feel supported, and not when it's okay to change friends. I mean, you people are like, oh, we went to high school together, therefore we're friends. I'm like, yeah, you may have outgrown them, and they may have outgrown you, kind of thing. Right. But just putting yourself, it's like that saying goes, you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So if you're hanging out with happy people, you're probably going to be the sixth person that's happy. If you're hanging out with 5 happies, you're probably going to be the sixth. If you're hanging out with 5 rich, you'll probably be the sixth. All these things. So keep putting yourself in a situation with, hey, it's okay. Craig had this situation of, Craig, if you had told that lawyer story that you just said, oh, I got this giant lawsuit, to the person you went to high school with, they'd be like, Craig, I don't know how you're going to handle this, dude. Well, you're cooked. And they're saying, welcome to the club. I got 15. And you're like, okay. So now all of a sudden they diminished your issues, right? Which then did not give you permission to wallow.
Yeah, 100%.
Ian asked a question about associates, and now here I am back to this.
I remember I was smiling as he asked that, because I remember the time I went to my wife when I was running out of money and the building was going up and I didn't have enough money, and I was in a cash crunch and I was losing sleep, and I had a legal pad next to my bed with all these people that I was friends with that I was going to borrow $10,000 and $20,000 and $50,000 from. I would wake up and add another one to the list. And I remember sitting my wife down once, and Gavin, my son was maybe 2 or 3 months old. Building's going up. Everybody's like, you're crazy. What are you doing? Is this a shopping mall? You're going to go out of business? People would tell me flat to my face, you are crazy. You're going out of business. I hope you didn't sign personally. That's what people said to me. I sit down. And I'm like, hey, babe, I got to talk to you about some serious stuff going on. She's like, what's up? I'm like, the building, I'm over budget. And as I start talking, her eyes are filling with water. She's freaking out. She's like, wait. What is going on? Like, what did you do? Like, are we okay? And she starts freaking out. And I just instantly decided to switch the narrative to, I'm just bullshitting you.
We're fine. We're fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Why did you say that? I don't know. I just want to see how you react. I had no one to talk to.
And let me guess, that was the last time you had that, hey, I'm going to put my cards on the table talk with you. With her.
I was like, that didn't go well.
Same story over here, by the way. Same story over here.
What I am hearing is find community, but find community in people that are going to pull you upwards and understand the problems you're going through. People that can sit at the table with you, not just anybody.
100%. Dentistry, Ian, I say this term, it's been a newer term. We operate as lone wolves because that's what we've been trained to do, right? If the dentist down the street is doing well, that means you're doing bad. I better show my cases on Instagram or else patients will leave or something. It's like we operate in this lone wolf. We can't show anything. And that's complete bullshit. It's such bullshit.
And it starts with our training, by the way, Pete. There's this internal competition in dental schools. Your rank.
Are you number one or number 3 or number 4? Are you specializing? Or no, I didn't get high enough. Like, it's just bullshit.
Since this is a Bulletproof podcast, I see we're coming to the end of the episode. I want to give our listeners some light at the end of the tunnel. If they are feeling they're alone, if they are struggling with their mental health, if they feel like this is the end of the road. Craig, let's start with you. In those days, besides getting Peter into your life and focusing on the positive rather than negative, what are some steps that you took that really started to turn things around for you?
I got educated from highly successful people. So when I was in that space where I was talking to my wife about going broke or whatever, a friend of mine gave me Tony Robbins CDs. And I remember telling him, I'm like, hey bro, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going through a rough time. Like, I don't need this stuff. And he's like, well, I have a coach. And I had this coach. I'm like, well, I don't need that. I'm not like that bad. I'm like, I'm okay, because you get used to your surroundings. You get used to your level of deserve or unhappiness or happiness. And from that, I went to an event, and that event really changed a lot of the way I think. So if you are that person, the Bulletproof Summit wasn't around at that time, but we have that 10x guarantee that you can produce 10 times more than you spent on the summit, or we'll give you your money back. But I would go so far that the fulfillment aspect is a 10x as well. I would welcome a call or a contact from someone who went with 1 or 2 key team members. I would welcome the call, because it would be so shocking to me if at the end of the 2 or 3 days you said, didn't really add, didn't really move the needle, didn't give me the tools. I would welcome that call. I would probably, Pete, you don't have to give the money back. I'll give the money back myself, because I know it's just an impossibility. You have to be so closed off to be immersed in a 2-day seminar to not be able to move the needle. It's like in that saying, in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. You have to actually be examining your own psychology to see that you want to stay stuck in your dirty diaper. You want to stay stuck where you are. And that's one thing too. People, that's your emotional home. Some people, whether it's their friends or their own psychology, they don't believe they deserve happiness and success. They're like, it's Monday, I guess my life's going to suck. They don't actually believe they deserve it. So what Peter and I found, we found people that actually were striving and achieving and happy. We're like, well, if they can do it, we're deductive learners. We're like, if they can do it, I think we can do it too. And that's what the summit is like, because we get to be real and raw and show people the tools. And the team gets turned on, and all of a sudden that feeling that Peter and I had, we were the only ones that cared, you see your team lighting up and the burden gets easier. Peter and I started out and convinced other people to go along with us. And at times we were leading them, in full disclosure. At other times they were leading us. So it's like, if you're going to go on a marathon and you got a running buddy, you're going to complete the damn marathon. My call to you is either go to a business seminar, but ideally you'd go to the Bulletproof Summit. Your life will be forever changed.
And for once, I don't have the steps.
No, this can't be.
I don't have the formulas, Craig says that, I jumped to the steps. I just don't.
Let's go back to your story then. Just say, where did you start to feel things turn around? We're like, when I just did this, the little bits of sunshine started to come through. And it's something Craig is talking about community. We're talking about finding your buddy. We're talking about leading your team, talking to them.
Yeah, I think really it was, I say inputs is your outputs. I think like Craig, I had to change some things because the way I was doing wasn't working. I knew that I needed to change some things. And so I had to get new mentors and get new friends, learn new skills, right? And when you start getting a little glimmer of hope, right? Success leaves clues, right? As Tony Robbins says, right, Craig? And you start getting a little bit more of that. And I think it's just really the keep going thing is all I will say. Is all I will say. Keep going. Don't make a decision, any kind of decision, when you're in crisis.
You know what? One thing I just want to add to what you just said, Peter, you always say input equal outputs. And if you're really happy, for those listening, if you're really happy with the physical condition, if you're happy with the physical shape you're in, I want you to take inventory of all the things that you do, the inputs, the looking at the macronutrients, the supplements, the discipline to wake up early, to push the weight, to do whatever you're doing. Look at your inputs and look at what you're proud of. And then take inventory on your mental health. Are you doing the same level of inputs? Are you training? Are you feeding yourself the nutrients? Are you taking in good content? Or are you sitting there with a bunch of drinking buddies who hate their wives, hate their lives, and you're just like, that's the norm? And I do believe your circle is the most powerful thing. So if you have great psychology, but your circle sucks, you're not going to be able to pull through it. And I'm not saying to drop friends, but be discerning on who you feed into your life. You can always hang out with them, but you have to be discerning. You have to get some people maybe that are ahead of you, some people that are equal to you, and then some of the old friends that you try to lift up. But your circle is the most important thing in my experience.
I want to end off by saying, if you're out there, if you're feeling alone, do not struggle in silence. There's no honor in that. You've heard Peter's story. You've heard Craig's story now. We are here to help too. We are a resource. You are familiar with the Bulletproof hotline. That number is 561-933-5575. Reach out to us. Talk to us. If you have nobody else to go to, we are here. Or mystory@bulletproofdentalpractice.com. Send us an email. There is always hope. Chat to us. We're here.
I would welcome that, Ian. I'm so thankful that you ended with those two hotlines, the hotline and the My Story. And if you have that story and you're in a dark place, you can come on the My Story and turn your camera off. But we welcome the live discovery of your fulfillment issues. I think we could possibly help with that. So we leave messages on the hotline or email us.
Thanks everyone for watching today's episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Pod. We hope this conversation brought you a tremendous amount of perspective and reminded you of why you love dentistry. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, drop us a comment, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future episode. Additionally, it would really help us if you could send this message to someone that you think would enjoy it. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep leading boldly, and most importantly, stay bulletproof.